So yeah, just a bit about me. I'm a ZK researcher at Aragon. So part of a special research team. We're trying to see some cool innovations that we can apply to DAOs coming from cryptography, and I'll essentially talk about a few ideas we have, a few ideas that are general in the space, which we even don't have time to build. There's a lot. I also got a chance to participate in ZK Hack 2023, part of the Zero Gravity team. We got to win it. And this is kind of a short introduction that I'm a big fan of ZKML, trying to verify how machine learning works and putting it on chain. So we'll touch a bit on that later. And I'm also doing right now a small grant for Ethereum Foundation. And there's a website in case. Cool. So what we're going to talk about today is, again, a quick recap about ZK, because not everyone even understands what the two letters mean, even some of the developers who use it. Then an overview of several ways you can enhance DAOs with ZK, and then I'll paint the picture of how I want DAOs to be in a few years. Well, hopefully we'll get there. No, yeah, fingers crossed. So, yeah, what's actually ZK? I'm not going to explain what DAOs are. Everyone has their own picture, and it's a very controversial topic. But I guess, like, for ZK I can speak. It translates as zero knowledge, and I think you would know that. However, actually, there are a bunch of definitions of ZK, and also everyone has their own favorites. So some people say it's zero knowledge, meaning that it's private. Some people say it's zero knowledge, meaning that it's succinct, so it's very short, which doesn't really make sense, but it is life. And there's also some people who say it's just some complex cryptography. So yeah, actually we're going to use the third definition, even though true developers will hate me for that. But I think it's going to be easier, and we'll try to get more information covered in one session. So yeah, that's pretty much us trying to explain what ZK is. So, generally, again, we are saying that ZK is complex cryptographic techniques, and why is it important for DAOs? Well, of course, several factors. First, it brings us anonymity and privacy. I know that not everyone thinks that it's very important, but I do think it will enable a lot more use cases when you actually have a safe space for DAO members, which are not totally public for everyone else to see, and they actually get some private space to do their own business. Second, I guess this would be important if we want to scale the systems, scale DAOs to actually a huge number of members. It's figuring out how to make voting scalable, how to make governance scalable, and enhance the amount of people who actually take part, because the fees are lower and it's generally more efficient. So this is another reason where ZK can chip in. Then, of course, we have new technologies. And this is actually the biggest benefit for DAOs I see, is that ZK, it's not going to be the technology itself, but it's going to be what ZK brings in. So ZK enables us to bring in AI, to bring in multi-chain and other very cool ideas into DAO space, and then that's going to change it quite a bit. So in the next part of the talk, I'm just going to cover all of it, and we'll go step by step from anonymity up to AI. And there'll be some controversial ideas, so there'll be some time, yeah, thank you. But there'll be some time to discuss it. So in the end, just if you have questions, we can chat about how actually AI can govern us. So yeah, applications of ZK and how we can do it in DAOs. Let's go. So first, and I guess the most well-known way to use ZK is anonymity. Basically, I'm sure everyone have heard about it. There's been a Nouns research proposal looking into ZK anonymous voting. Aragon was also part of that. Several other teams were doing this as well. And I would say this is more or less solved. I mean, it's been proposed, what, about 20 years ago, how to do it. So there is not much fun going in the space. We just want to get actual real products there, because right now we have maybe 20 prototypes which you can try, but no one guarantees that it's actually anonymous because no one did audits. So it's just waiting for the moment when a final release product will come out and will beat the space. So yeah, like you can already use it for your, but you need to just like trust that it's secure. Eventually, I'm sure this will be done. And what this will enable, of course, is that when people vote, they won't be encouraged to vote in a particular way because they're anonymous, their identity is public. No. Because it's anonymous, well, they won't be feel pressured to vote for something particular. And there's a second catch. I'm not sure how applicable this is, but I know that, for example, SEC, they consider you being a DAO member if you are voting or actively participating in a DAO. So perhaps if the voting is anonymous, you don't really count this as being participant. Yeah, I know it's kind of strange, and I'm sure they'll find a different way to determine who is a DAO member. But this is maybe a life hack how you can avoid problems for a year or so. Then actually the second step would be anonymous group membership. The idea there is, well, when you try to vote, you need to prove that you are a member of a DAO, right? But you can use the same idea for a lot of other use cases. For example, there are DAO forums where people chat, and sometimes, again, you want to express your opinion, and you want to prove that you have a lot of tokens and like you are actually a DAO member, and you have a way to sway the elections. However, you don't want to disclose your identity because maybe then they will pressure you in some way. So like, again, anonymity helps in some ways. So this would be the case where you, for example, go to Discourse and you prove that you have 10,000 tokens, 1 million tokens, and but not the actual identity, and then you just go with that. So it's one of the applications. Again, it's pretty much solved. There are Semaphore, which does the Sysmo, a lovely project, Axiom, again, what we're doing. And the best advantage is if you are a developer, you might know that there are mini-me tokens. So eventually we can get rid of those because you can use an idea of cold storage proofs. That's what Axiom is providing to prove that you have tokens in history. Like essentially making, reducing the need for wrapper tokens, for wrapping, all of that, simplifying the ecosystem a bit. But yeah, this is kind of banal, like it's boring for me at least. So kind of cool ideas are in privacy. So we talked about anonymity. Anonymity is simple. But what if we want to actually have private spaces where information is only disclosed to DAO members? So yeah, like there is no solution right now. There are two ways we can go. We can wait for another 10 years until better cryptography becomes available. But yeah, I think it's too much for blockchain to wait 10 years. So there's a different way, and it's actually to redefine what we count as DAOs. Because right now, I would say a lot of us see DAOs as essentially a smart contract on one particular chain. But perhaps it's actually about the people who are members of the DAOs. And if we look at this way, like to have privacy in DAOs, we need to have some secret. And the secret potentially should be shared among DAO members. You can't put a secret on chain because then it stops being a secret, like it's public blockchains. So if you share the secret among DAO members, what this allows you to do now, and DAO can act as a real wallet. So perhaps you know there's a difference between smart contracts and owned wallets, because smart contracts, they can do actions, but they're transparent. They cannot sign anything, they cannot store any secrets, and they can't encrypt any data. But you as an owner of a wallet, you can, for example, have a signature, you can store funds. There's a lot more versatility to that. So if we reconsider how we define DAOs, we can enable DAOs to essentially have private wallets that they control, and they can now use it to encrypt information. And as I said here, for example, now you can create private forums, private chats, just for DAO members. And in order to join these chats, for example, you need to be a DAO member, and then someone needs to share a portion of a secret with you. Like, there are ways to do it, trust me. It's quite complex, I'm not covering it today. But there are ways to do it, and this will create private chats, private forums. People will be able to talk there together. There won't be cases, for example, of Constitution DAO anymore, where people knew how much funds a project had. Instead, the DAO funds will be anonymous. This is one of the ideas we have. It's called Bank DAO. The idea that there'll be a smart contract acting as a bank, and DAOs will have a portion of funds in there. So like essentially, this contract will store funds from multiple DAOs, so no one will know how much exactly each DAO has. Yeah, and also, I would say this is a holy grail, but this will need a lot of work, having anonymous DAO membership. The problem here is that right now token ownership is kind of public, at least on Ethereum, and we define most of the time being a DAO member as holding a token. So for that, we'll need to redefine this concept. But once we do, again, having anonymous DAOs, and actually no one can go for you because no one knows even who is part of the DAO. Hard to imagine, because still DAOs are about communicating, and probably there will be some identity, but maybe this is a unique anonymous identity just for the DAO. Some of the ideas. So yeah, that's kind of the idea for privacy. I really hope this will come soon, and I believe this will change a bit how we see the space. But there's a better way, because remember when we talked about ZK, we said it's both private and scalable, and people see it differently. So here it's more about scalability, and the way I see future DAOs is that there'll be on multiple chains. So again, it's not about one smart contract sitting on mainnet, for example, or on L2 and just working on this chain. No, it's about the people who are part of the DAO, and they can work on multiple chains, cross chains, and just like acting, for example, storing funds on one chain, doing proposals on other chains, on multiple chains, and having this kind of freedom of action while being tied to a particular DAO. There are different ways to do it. For example, we already sort of did this for voting with Bachelor Vote and O-Vote. So there were several attempts to do roll-ups for voting. However, again, I believe the better way or the future way is to enable DAOs to bridge proposals, for example, or essentially use bridging between different networks to make them actually more capable. And this is pretty hard right now because there is infrastructure, but it still requires some trust, because I don't believe anyone solved the bridges being fully transparent, fully trustless. So I'm not sure when this will be available, but hopefully quite soon. Yeah, and this is my favorite topic. I don't know. I don't know even what came first, ZKML or AI governance. The idea, well, basically, when you work in a research team next to a lot of governance experts, you get a lot of influence on how you actually see politics and how you see governance working. After 2 years of Aragon, like, my mind totally changed on that. And at some point in time, I realized that, well, it would be fun to see how AI could govern us, but we'll get to that later. First, AI can potentially help us govern. And the idea there is it can be an iterative process. We actually have a lovely blog post on that in our blog on how AI can help DAOs. First way is it can help summarize proposals. So essentially, imagine you are a regular DAO member and there's a lot going on in your Discord, even more going on your forum, and it's kind of hard to keep up, especially if you're part of 10 DAOs. So it would be kind of nice if you had a summary of all the activity for every day or like every week when you want to actually vote on something. You just like read a TLDR of what was going on, and it's not opinionated. So you just read it, and based on that, you can make your decision a lot quicker and easier than scrolling through the tons of comments. Well, this is kind of the first iteration. The second iteration is actually when you don't even need to make this decision, but someone makes this decision instead of you. This is kind of what we're doing right now with delegates. And, well, one of the ideas is just to make delegates AI. So AI delegates, you might ask, like, why is this actually secure and this is not secure? But hopefully eventually it will be. And then the AI will just read all information about the DAO, what was going on in the blockchain space, read some Twitter, for example, use this as an input, and will say that, okay, based on your preferences, and I know that you want this DAO to go in this direction, because you set up some parameters, I will vote in this way. So imagine like a user doesn't even need to log in, it happens automatically, and maybe once a month, once half a year, you just need to readjust your priorities on how you believe the DAO should evolve. So it's a lot less activity required from the user. And again, as far as I remember, the biggest problem is actually, it's very hard to engage users to constantly vote. It's hard. So just delegating it to someone, potentially AI, could be a nice idea. And finally, again, once we already trust AI to act as a delegate, perhaps we can just make AI make small decisions. So here I go back to how governments work. Again, not an expert, I'm a ZK engineer, but this is how I understand. They just make small decisions, like abstracted from regular population. So perhaps AI can also do small decisions, like depositing in this smart coin pair to get some yield, or funding this little project because it's likely going to be beneficial, and you don't need to have the whole populace to vote on that. So these are the 3 steps, and hopefully we'll get to this. So I'm not sure, again, how you define DAOs, but one of the interesting opinions I've heard about DAOs is, well, it's not about actual people voting. It's about an organization going in one direction, which is set for it. So an organization has an objective. It wants to, I don't know, make money. It wants to cure cancer and other ideas. And then it tries to head in that direction. And what voting does, it just tries to keep it in the right direction. So like when someone makes decisions, well, collective voting, it prevents us from straying away from the objective, and people try to control the scope of the DAO. So what AI can do, it actually can remove people from the equation altogether. and we will have almost zero participation from humans, and AI will make all the decisions. It will try to get the objective done. And on the upper side, like there will be no rug pulls because suddenly the DAO is overwhelmed by some adversary community or like the objectives change, or because people, well, you can try to trick people, rage quit, for example. Like this is a tricky technique people can use to get funds out of the DAO. Well, it's gonna be hard to explain to AI that it needs to rage quit because it has no personal interests. It's just wants to achieve the general objective. So this is one of the future of DAOs. So I see just like someone creates a smart contract saying, well, this is your objective. Here are the funds I deposit into you. And this smart contract starts to act on its own, doing some transactions, funding projects, and doing everything without any humans being part of it. Yeah. This is kind of where it was all about the use cases, different technologies where ZK can impact DAOs. We talked about anonymity, privacy, then a bit about scaling and how we can go on multiple chains, use lower fees, different trust models. And we also covered how AI can come into equation and change how we see the space. So here is 5 elements of a future DAO and how I imagine it. First is definitely anonymous voting. I think like this is what we are used to in society when we vote in actual governments. Like no one knows the content of our ballot and it's fully anonymous, so we should get the same here. Second, there should be some private space for DAO members where they can, and only they can discuss ideas, and it should be trustless, so no one should control it. No one should be able to kick you out as long as you are an actual DAO member. However, there should be also rules on how to make it public, because if you have a fully private DAO, the community won't, like the general blockchain community won't know what's going on there. So each DAO should have some regulations on when stuff gets public or what stuff gets public. For example, maybe after months, all the proposals get public. This is something we can do. Like it's not imaginary. There just needs to be need for that. Then, of course, DAOs needs to work on multiple chains, like Cosmos, all the ecosystems. Right now, we're creating connections between all the blockchains. So why don't we just leverage it and create DAOs that can just be defined by, again, the group of people, not by the chain they chose and the smart contract they deployed. So, of course, I know that AI right now is really changing this space and it's really enhancing user experiences in all the areas. So I believe AI can help there as well. And of course, I also see the arrival of the kind of no human DAOs where actually decisions are made by AI itself, and they won't there'll be both human controlled DAOs and these DAOs. But I do think these autonomous agents will soon be among us. And they won't be attending the conference, but of course, they'll be working on chain. So yeah, that's kind of how I see the future of DAOs. And well, my last slide is thank you. But actually what I want to say is how we want to get there, because this technology is quite possible to do already. You just need, again, developers focusing on that. And for that, we need kind of community engagement. So just getting the word across and seeing what are the priorities. Because like for that, you just need like talented group of people to sit down, work on that for a bit, and this will be done. But then you need to audit this. So there is need to be interest. And the moment it is, there is interest, we'll get to the future DAOs. Not in no time, but again, a year or 2 years is probably the timeline we're looking into. So yeah, that's kind of me. I'm not sure about the time. Oh, well, we really rushed it. So we have 10 minutes for a discussion, questions, yeah, shout out.
So the anonymity piece, you said it's kind of solved, but then it's like there's a gap from it's solved to like a functional product.
Yeah.
What's the biggest reason for that gap to be there?
I would say it's ZK EVMs and VMs. So basically right now it's almost impossible to get auditors to audit these projects, ZK EVM, and actual developers to develop the state-of-the-art, like actual projects, which will be production ready, because there's quite little talent left on the market, no way to audit it, because auditors, they either don't know the technology or they're busy doing audits for ZK EVMs. And other than that, I mean, just I guess time. So and interest from the community. Again, what Nouns did, if we had more of that, for example, like if for every element of my presentation, there was a Nouns proposal or another DAO proposed, well, we need this. For example, actually, AI was proposed by MakerDAO, but I believe they will be doing it in-house. But if they were to ask the community to come up with proposals, I think this would allow a lot more people to get engaged and deliver it a lot quicker than we have today. Again, like a good example, Nouns, the whole space really changed in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because there were 15 proposals of how you can do anonymous voting, different ideas, and in the end, I think the solution that will be on the market is going to be like superb to compare to what was there before. So, anything else? Cool, okay. And I guess I'll wrap up a bit quicker and there'll be time to socialize. So thank you.